Hello there, my name's Brandon and I make pictures out of tiny squares. And in this video, I'm going to be making a new building for Petal Runner, which is the game that I'm working on, which we just announced last month. And by the way, real quick, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who checked out and commented on that announcement video. We've been working on this in secret for a few years now, and so just being able to finally share it, and it was really amazing to see that there was a nice positive reception about the game, and many of you left really nice words of encouragement, and it's really meant a lot to us, so thank you. My task for today is going to be that I have to make another location for a group that's called HOP, who are kind of like the police force in the world of our game. So the building that we already see here, that's one of their other locations from earlier on in the game. But the new one I'm going to make is going to be a branch within a different neighborhood. And I want it to be quite a bit larger, more like a tall office tower that can kind of fit into a downtown cityscape. The main feature that I wanted for this tower design was to have a large billboard display on the front that's running kind of a recruitment ad for the Hop. Something, that might lend kind of a slight Cyberpunk, corpo kind of feel to it, propaganda kind of thing. They're not really like that, but just for the visual of it, So I framed out this billboard at a size that can accommodate this existing portrait artwork of the Hop officer to use within the ad. And I'll just continue building out the rest of the design around that core piece. The other feature element I wanted for this building is to have a large fan and some tubing that kind of sits around with the billboard. I'm planning for the area that this is eventually going to go into that there are going to be a lot of fans and vents and things that are kind of controlling the airflow and the air quality of this area. So eventually that'll kind of make sense and fit within the environment. So as you can see, I'm building up the base structure by using simple shapes to start. It basically just starts out as blocks and cylinders that are placed together to create this underlying template for the building. And this is of course in a top-down view, so we're orienting these shapes to see their top face and their front face. From here, I like to find small ways to make the silhouette or the line work more interesting. So I've introduced a few angled cuts into some of the corners. And eventually we can also tack on some details along the edges that'll kind of break up the flatness of that silhouette. For some of the inner surfaces, I'm putting in some line work designs of pipes and wires and different textures like that, which honestly is just something I find looks cool for sci-fi buildings to have those sorts of exposed mechanical components. But this is an area that I really have fun with for the art style of this game. We've got kind of this underlying Game Boy style form factor for the sprite work in the buildings. And I just like playing with that balance of deciding when to keep things simple and when to go a little bit harder on the details and the textures. All right, now that the line work is in a good spot, it's time to add some color. So the core palette for the game uses these 4 colors here. And I'm going to start by just casting the whole thing in the purple color. And then we can use some of the lighter colors to highlight the top faces and some of the edges and things. Also, the specific neighborhood that this building is going to be located also uses these 3 additional accent colors here, which are just a bit more varied and punchy. And I've been using them usually for touches like neon lights and billboards and glowing buttons. And I've also been finding that it looks really cool to sort of paint in a bit of rim lighting on the edges of buildings. So I'm just playing around a bit with those sorts of touches. One of the other things we always need to consider when making a new building is the fact that we have a daytime and nighttime look for everything in the game. So the default appearance and the default palette here is kind of what things just look like during the day. And when it's nighttime, what we do is we actually swap all those colors to slightly darker and desaturated versions of themselves. And it gives this overall effect of being dark outside. You can see this also allows us to create these sort of glowing light effects. And the way this works is that these are actually just masked out portions of the color swap. So everything that looks lit up in the nighttime appearance is actually just us seeing the original daytime palette colors. And we can overlay these masks as animated sprites, which is how we achieve stuff like the rotating light pattern here. So it's a neat little trick. And I like the fact that we have something like a nighttime appearance, but it's done in a way that keeps the color count still relatively controlled and restricted. So for this building, the main thing I'll probably end up masking out for the nighttime glow is the giant display screen, obviously, but then probably just a few other of the small colored lights and things. The final touches I'm doing here are just some of the characteristic features of the Hop imagery also. I've designed them to have this sort of rabbit motif. I don't picture it to be entirely intentional on their part. I think it's sort of funny that it would be a coincidence. Though, you know, they did kind of walk right into that by deciding to basically put rabbit ear antennas on everything, so who knows. But yeah, why don't we hop ahead and take a look at the finalized sprite work for the building. Here we go. Alright, the last additions here were just these animated components. And I wanted to mention that when preparing this sort of thing as a game asset, as opposed to what I might do just in my regular art, is that every little animated piece that you see here is actually its own isolated sprite. And these all get layered together to create the final appearance. So this means that the underlying structure of just the building itself can stay as one single sprite frame, and we're not adding unnecessary bulk to the sprite sheet by animating that full building as one large piece. But rather every little piece that's in motion is just a small cutout and it saves space overall. Also, I decided to drop this into the game just so we can kind of see how it looks. This isn't the final location for this building, I'm still working on that actual area, but just to give you an idea of how it might look in context, and with the finalized nighttime appearance as well, this is kind of what we can see. I'll try doing a CRT time from the in-game footage here, so I hope you enjoyed seeing this come together. I guess we can look out for this building now in the final game. And thank you for watching, and take care and keep it square.